Hi folks, welcome to another broken Meeple review on this hot sweltering day. It's like absolutely baking in this top alone, but when you do the review videos you've got to don the logo, as it were. So this is a big one today. I am taking a look at the, shall we say, renowned solo game among solo gamers, Seventh Continent. And as well as Seventh Continent, this will also take into account the minor additions you get in the Crystal Song add-on pack that I was able to get. So I bought this one myself and then they sent me this one for free, but yeah, this is a small addition to the game. So, Seventh Continent, the classic version. My god, if you talk to solo gamers, you will hear about this game a lot. But it's got a very divisive response. You go onto some YouTubers and there are some that absolutely adore this game. Like 10 out of 10, this is my favourite game ever. It's like, I love it and I want to sleep with it and everything. But then you get others who have gone on and kind of gone, yeah, this really sucked. I didn't like it. I was bored. You know, what am I going to do? And it's like, okay, this could be a fun one. Now, I've held off for a while because for ages it was Kickstarter only, and I hated that. I don't like it when something is Kickstarter only. But now, Serious Pulp have brought out the classic version, which is like the bare bones edition of Seventh Continent, without any expansions and without the Kickstarter stretch goals that gave you additional content. Question is the classic version worth it if you haven't delved into this? And regardless of which, is the game fun or is it boring? Which one of these sides of the YouTubers are right, or is it really going to depend on your own personal taste? Well, what on earth is it? You are essentially cursed, and there are several different curses you can go through. You end up on this island, a mixture of islands, this continent, if you will. Funny enough, hidden the name. And you explore this via cards. You start off on one card, you set up a character, you build a deck full of cards which acts as your kind of life force, which consists of various skills and items that you can acquire. And the cards will dictate where you can move to, what actions you can do, sightseeing, read a map, swim on a raft, walk up a hill, kill something, hunt something. And when you go to those actions, you look up the card number as it's stated. You look in the box for the card and then read what it says. So it's kind of got an aspect of choose your own adventure in a sense, except without the book, it's all done by a plethora of cards. And as you go through these actions, you will draw from your deck to find these gold star symbols for successes, and depending on success or failure, you will tell this story of how you go through the continent. Now, you start off with extremely limited information about the curse that you are with. You'll get a clue card, of which the first one in here, the Voracious Goddess, will sort of give you an idea of which direction you should be heading, but not the most clearest one ever. And the other quests will pretty much give you very little in the way of clues. I mean, it will kind of say, well, look for this icon on the card. Where are they? You don't know. This is very much an exploratory game. You are exploring this vast continent, and it is pretty big. I mean, if you get all the cards and map them out entirely, like Carcassonne style, you'd end up with a pretty sizable map by the end of the day. And as you're going through, you've got to find it. The most of this is survival rather than achieving the goal. It's okay to say, oh, right, well, I need to find 5 pieces of X or so. But at the end of the day, you still need to keep your life force deck in check because it's kind of like the TV show Nightmare. You can go through and do all this stuff, but if you take too long, eventually that skull appears and then you die. So you've got to find food, you've got to find ways to get your life force deck replenished. Otherwise, it runs out and you eventually keel over. So with that said, let's go into a bit more detail. So duration. With this, and I know some people want to see the back of the box. Yeah, it doesn't really show you much. But duration. Now, this is a problem. So, I mean, you can kind of play this for however long you like. You can put the game together, go through it, and decide when you want to stop. There is a save feature which allows you to basically kind of retract the game to its bare bones state, and then you just put things back in the box, and then when you want to resume, you just get those cards out again and instantly go off. That's decent and all. The save feature is definitely worth a look, except for one part we'll get onto a bit later. But you could play this for 30 minutes, you could play this for 3 hours. It's entirely up to you. But in terms of the quest length, these curses, my god, are they long. This is a game that could take you anywhere between 6 to 8 hours to complete the first quest that it requires you to do in the box. The subsequent quests could take you a similar amount of time, probably a good 5 to 6 hours. And that's assuming you don't die. That's assuming you don't get sidetracked. There's a lot of content in here, but it's going to take you a while to succeed or even fail, really, at any of these curse cards. And that is a good thing and a bad thing. Having all that content is well and good, but it can get a little bit too long for its sake. We watch a film that's 3 hours long, and that's all well and good. It may be like really interesting, but it's like, come on, it kind of needs to finish at some stage. I kind of compare it to watching, say, something like the Blade Runner sequel, Blade Runner 2. You watch it and it's like 3 and a bit hours long. It's a ridiculously long film. You watch it and you go, this stuff's pretty cool. I mean, I like this world. I like the stuff that's in it. This is intriguing. Tell me more. But then you realise that it's going at an extremely slow pace and it's never ending. You're like, okay, come on, hurry up and finish. So this game has that kind of feel from a time perspective. And a lot of that time is going to come into the next section, ease of play. The rules are very straightforward. I mean, the rule book is not particularly long. It is, fairly standard rule book. And you will have a fair bit of text, but there's a lot of pictorial representation here. In fact, a lot of pictorial representation. And a lot of these intro pages are just basically going through the object of the game, the iconography, and you've got a reference aid on the back, and you've got a very good reference aid, double-sided for you. Unfortunately, there's only one of them. There should really be more, but as a solo game, don't really care. But it may look like there's a lot of rules, but there really isn't that many rules you need to learn. The reason it gives you like this bucket load of icons is because there's a ton of actions you can do in the game, but they all work in the same manner. You find out how many cards you have to draw from your deck, how many successes you need. You draw as required, whether it's fixed or variable, and then you see whether you pass or fail. Doesn't matter if the action is movement, hunting, killing, exploring, climbing, whatever. The result and the mechanism is still the same. So even though it looks like a lot of rules, you could condense it down a lot further. And apart from that, the rest of the book is mainly different modes, the consequences of cards, and how items work. It's pretty straightforward. After barely maybe 20 minutes of reading this book, it did not take me long to get into it. And you could actually, if you like, just set up the first quest per the setup in this book and get going. Forget anything else. Just get going and read it from the rulebook as you go. Perfectly valid. You will probably lose your first quest easily enough, but at least you will learn on the go. And if that's not enough for you, then Rodney Smith has done a watch him played video for this, and I actually watched that myself, and it explained everything crystal clear. So you've got rulebook, you've got, the website itself, you've got Rodney Smith. Should not be difficult for you to get into this game. New gamer friendly? No, not like that. But any gamer should have no problem picking this up, and I would dare say some people who haven't got into games as much as others would still not particularly struggle with it. The iconography is clear, the graphic design made sense for the most part. I was pretty fine with getting to grips from a rules perspective. Now, tactics and strategy. Now, the exploratory part of this game is fantastic. I mean, you are going through these different locations. There is so much to explore. You will not be able to find everything if you want to survive, so you have to skip bits. Some areas of the island are not even needed. That ends up being a problem. More on that in a sec. But you've got plenty enough to explore, and that feeling of exploration is done so well in this game, probably better than most other games in existence. So if that's one thing that you're hoping to get out of this, then thumbs up, you're going to get it. And it's definitely my favourite aspect of the game. The fact that I can go to a completely different island and find, anything from like some killer crabs to, a treasure chest buried in the sand, to monkeys, to a tunnel into some caves, to a maze. All sorts of different things can pop up via these cards. There could be multiple branching paths depending on whether you've got certain items at that point. There's definitely plenty from an exploratory perspective. Although, here's a tip, take notes. Draw the map out. You are going to want to do this because you have got a lot of ground to cover. And the first quest in particular, the clue map that you get isn't particularly clear on which direction you go. In fact, I got lost on it because there's one point where I think it actually contradicts itself. But if you do not take notes on where things are on the island, like know where the exits are here or know whether this particular statue appears on multiple cards, if you don't take those kind of notes, the future quests are going to be painful. because one problem this game has that's a bit of a biggie is the sheer amount of repetition and backtracking it can have. You know, it's as I said, there are some areas that are not even remotely useful to what you need. That's fine once or twice. By the time you get to the 4th or 5th time, you're losing the will to live a bit. And it can be very frustrating that for this quest that's gone on for over 4 to 5 hours already, you get to this bit of the island that's completely irrelevant for you. You've no idea which way you're going. This game does not hold your hand and say, oh yeah, come in this direction. No, you are just completely blind for the most part.
Are we being too literal?
No, you fool. We're following orders. We were told to comb the desert, so we're combing it.
You know, I need to find a statue somewhere. Where on earth is it? I have no idea. I've been walking around this continent twice over and I still can't find it.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir!
It can be fun at first, but eventually it's going to grate and you're going to want it to end, just like a long movie that outstays its welcome. It hooks you at first, but then starts to grate and starts to really numb at your patience. And I don't have a lot of patience myself, I will say.
What about you guys? We ain't found
But the other thing that will contribute to that is this setup. So you've got a bunch of cards, a ton of them. Okay, fair enough. So when you've got the game out, you essentially have these two. Whoop, try and get them out. Come on. It's easier. Oh, it's because I put the other cardboard bit in there. There we go. So let's say I've got this batch of cards here. I'm playing it. I've got some cards on the table. So we'll just lay out these, for example. And it's like, right, I've got to go find card 299. Okay, find it. And don't worry, I won't be spoiling anything. So I was like, okay, I do that. All right, let's do an action. Right, let's put it back in the box. Okay, and I pass. So you've got card 155. Okay, fine. Okay, no, done that. Okay, now I want to move. Look up card 233. Oh, there's something I've got to do first. Okay, I choose option A. Okay, find card 101. And then, that's the result of it. Okay, then I'll find the card I was meant to find originally, which is number 45. Are you starting to get the point here? There is a nickname I have for this game. It's called Filing Cabinet, the game. You will look through these cards in this manner a lot. A lot. And when you do it the first 10 times, you go, this is a pretty cool system. It's neat. It's intuitive. Cool. The first 100 times you do it, you're like, I've been doing this for a bit, but I'm exploring. This is fine. You know, When you do it for the quintillionth time, I hate you now. It really does get to the point where it's like, I am sick and tired of looking through this tray of cards to find everything. Especially if you have to repeat the quest because you died. Or like you go on to a different quest and it's like, well, okay, I've done that bit of the island, but I still need to get off this starting island. Well, all right, I already know that's there. Hang on, flip the card, fine. 236, oh, whatever. I know what it does. Just tell me if it's pass or fail. There we go.
That's much too early. Prepare to fast forward. Preparing to fast forward. Fast forward. Fast forwarding, sir.
And yes, this will happen to you. Trust me. And the worst part is that as you go through these cards, you have a choice of, you have to either banish them or discard them. Banish takes them out of the game, fine. No problem, that doesn't happen to a lot of cards. But discard just means you literally take the card and stick it down there. Okay, fine. Then when you go to a new location, it tells you to return all the cards. This big discard pile that you've got here with a bunch of numbers all mixed up from 2 trays worth of cards, you've got to now sort back into here every time you do a new location. My God, does that grate at your patience when you're trying to go and find all these things. I mean, you've got dividers, but they're in batches of 50 for the most part. It's not like it's the easiest thing to do, and certainly not the quickest thing to do. And worse still, when you save, you've got, normally when you go to a location, you've got an exploration card in between. So some random thing happens, typically bad, but you have to go through that every time you go to a new location first. When you save the game, you have to reset back to your original location. But then everything you've explored is gone, which means you have to re-explore the bits you've already gone through. Why? That seems a stupid addition. Now, granted, you could be more intelligent and say, right, well, the only times I'm going to save this game is when I arrive at a new location. So I've already returned the cards to the box, I'm at a brand new location, save. that's probably the best time to do it, and definitely that's when I did it. But personally, I think you're probably better off just simply leaving this game somewhere, because it doesn't take up a huge amount of table space. Leave it somewhere. Like, I've got a Geekson table here. I could play this in that corner over there, leave it out, never pack it away. Great. That's all well and good. Now, you're certainly going to, just be able to fly back in and continue with it, and that's probably the best way to do it. The more that you have to take out cards and return them to this filing cabinet, the more your patience is going to wear thin. And there have been times when I have gone through a quest where for the first 2 hours, 2.5, I'm kind of like, yeah, this is good, I'm doing it. Then 3 to 4, I'm like, okay, come on, this is getting annoying. And then by 5 and 6, I'm like, right, I hate this game. This is stupid. I'm putting it away. And I'm gone. It really does drive you batty if you are not careful. Now, more a bit that later, but for now, aesthetics. Gotta get a move on. The aesthetics are fine. There's nothing much in here to speak of. I mean, I will say from a negative point of view, the box is boring. I mean, it is literally just this brown all the way over with a funky little, curse symbol on the front. Whoopee. I mean, this would not fly off a shelf if you saw nothing but this box, and there's nothing on the back as I showed you, and basically inside you are paying for a bunch of cards. 2 trays of cards, and a little bit of extra cardboard for it. That's pretty much it. And this is a game that costs you nigh on £60 to buy in its classic version. Lord knows what you spent when you... Sorry, I apologise. I have no idea how much you had to spend for your Kickstarter project, but, wow, it would have been pretty bad. But these cards are fine, but they're kind of standard quality. They're not bad quality, but they're nothing to write home about. There's a fair bit of text and that on them, and there is a lot of cards, but you're not really paying for component quality here. You are paying for content, the amount of content in the game. And for £60, I think there is a good solid amount of content in this game. If you enjoy this game, you will easily get £60 worth, if not then some. But for components, you're kind of thinking, well, where's the physical stuff that I had? It's not particularly here. You are just looking at the cards. But the artwork is fine. I mean, let's trying to find something that's not too... let's see if I can find the starting location. I mean, that's not really going to spoil much in the game, the one you start at every single game. But, you have got relatively standard artwork. It's colourful. You can make out details on the map. There's a slightly irritating thing, which is the same thing that Unlock did, which is if you look for hidden numbers on the cards, you get to unlock new things. Kind of pointless, really, because none of the numbers have been particularly hard to spot, unlike an Unlock, and it just seems like an unnecessary addition. It's like, why don't you just put the action with the card slot there? I don't know. I don't get why you need it, but there's not a huge amount that you're going to be staring at all day on the cards, but when you do have a map and you see the continent in its full glory, like you've been in the same area for a long time, it can be pretty cool to see this giant Carcassonne style map all over the place, and with all the places that you could have been or maybe will do in the future. There's a fair amount of content there to look at, even if it's not necessarily the most visually pleasing. Now, immersion, theme-wise, very good. I mean, very good theme in this game. You definitely get that feeling of exploration as you go through. That is easily the best and most thematic part of this game. The stuff that you are doing action-wise, again, makes sense. You want to swim to a different continent. Well, if you swim over, then you'll have a harder time doing it. Not to mention, you'll probably be freezing and knackered by the time you get to the other side. Alternatively, build a raft. Build a raft and you will be able to sail over a bit quicker and easier. That makes sense. And all the other actions kind of work in that way. There is one element that I'm a little bit questionable on, though, and that's your items. Your items, depending on player count, can be stacked. So you've got several slots, but then in each slot you can have so many items mixed together so that they kind of take up one slot. If one item goes, another goes, and they've all got durability that wears down over time of uses. But it's based on a keyword that you slot them in, which is, you'd think that would work at first, but then you realise that food takes up the same slot as a shovel. So, I walk around with the shovel that's got a piece of, meat tied to the top of it? And then you've got, pan pipes can be mixed with, a fan. And, a club can be combined with some other, an ice pick and some other weapon, like a pistol. And it's like, so hang on a minute. So my pistol is strapped to this club, which also has a... Hey?
I need gopher chucks.
As it were, there's a lot of really questionable combinations that these items can do, well beyond the realms of logic. But I get why they've done it, and it works from an inventory system, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have anything in the game. You'd only have like 2 or 3, 4 slots in the game, and that'd be it. So it works from a mechanical perspective, but thematically that is a bit of a big disconnect. Other than that though, story, you're not necessarily caring too much about the overall plot of the curse. I mean, but by the time you spent 5 to 6 hours going through this, you probably will have forgotten what the curse was in the first place. But exploration-wise, the theme is still pretty strong. Now, longevity, as I said, you are getting a ton of content here. 3 quests are in this box. The Crystal Song element gives you, let me see, where did I put that box? This little thing essentially gives you another quest, which is technically regarded as an introductory quest that you should play before Voracious Goddess. I would actually say that's probably true. If you get this at the same time, play this quest first before you play Voracious Goddess. Because Voracious Goddess gets you to see a lot of the island, but it's so long. It's like the longest quest out of all the starting ones there, and that's going to be a bit of a turn-off for some people. But other than that, this just basically gives you some alternative ways to play. You've got different game modes that you can do. So if you play on easy mode, you basically get 1 reset. If you play on normal, you don't get a reset. Your life force runs out, that's it, done. But it gives you a couple of other ways to do it. So you've first got immortal mode, effectively, which basically means that you banish cards at a certain rate as you die, but other than that, you just respawn. So that's for the ones who prefer the exploration side rather than the survival side. There's also a Prodigy Mode, which is kind of like easy plus, where not only do you get the life reset, but you also get 5 cards to put in your action life deck, so it's already bigger, but they're also really powerful effects, and I've got lots of success stars on them. So it's kind of making your deck a bit more powerful. You can combine them as you see fit. Personally, I kind of want some challenge there, so I don't like to play on Immortal mode as such. I tend to just play on easy mode, normal, so I've got the 1 reset, and that's fine. And to be honest, as much as the game can be hard at times with its tests, it's not that difficult to not waste your action deck in this. Because as soon as you realise that hunting is the quintessential most important thing you must do in this game, it's very hard to run out of action life cards. Because you go on a hunt, you flip some cards, you get some successes, and you choose from an animal that you find. Providing you've geared up ahead of time, which I highly recommend you gear up with some decent weaponry, then you can go, well, I don't want the hare. I mean, I could kill a little rabbit, fine, but I could kill this bear. Yeah, the bear is more tricky, but I've got all these successes that my items are giving me, and look at what it gives me. Experience to get more cards and a ton of meat. And cooked meat allows you to get a lot of those cards back. So I tend to find that as soon as I start getting low on cards, I just go kill something big, and then suddenly I've got my whole deck back. I have managed to play this several times where I've never lost a life. I've just gone through fine. I didn't need the easy mode on top. But of course, my problem is that I keep wandering in the wrong flipping direction, and so end up, wasting my time. And that is the big thing with this. The way to play this game, if you play it the way I did, I think you're going to have problems. I think you're going to get frustrated with the grindiness of it, the constant filing cabinet system, which works from a mechanical perspective, but can really grate over time. But don't do it like I did, which is binge it. Don't treat it like a Netflix TV show, okay? Do not go, right, I'm going to watch everything right now. In this case, play the entire quest from start to finish, because it will get boring, you will get frustrated, you will get bored of these cards, constantly doing it, and you will, as you keep going in the wrong direction, it'll be like, oh, I've wasted so much time today, this is not fun. And that is the first impressions I got of this game. Now, I fixed this when I played it in a better way. And I forget the guy's name, but somebody came up with this on my YouTube comments, and I thought this was a really good analogy. I said Netflix show for playing it through. Treat this game like an episodic TV show. So think of it like the 25-minute anime show that you've been watching. So, I binged through a ton of My Hero Academia recently, but let's say I was watching it one at a time, which I'd have to do for, better analogy, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, I'm watching it now. 1 episode a week. So I watch it, I get full enjoyment out of it, and then I'm like, oh, what's going to happen next week? And then I've got that suspense waiting for next episode. And then in a week's time, I come back to it and enjoy another 45 minutes. This is how you should play this game. You should get started, get going, and then after anywhere from, say, 30 to 60 minutes, stop. Don't save the game. Leave it somewhere on a table that you can return to so you don't have to go through that horrible like resetting thing. But leave it somewhere. After 60 minutes, go, we're good. Whose turn is it? Yours, right, fine, mark it. We'll come back. So all in all, with those caveats in mind, I still think this is a good game, but I don't think this is the top 10, 20 of Board Game Geek worthy. I don't think this is 10 out of 10 worthy by a long shot, because I think the caveats I've mentioned and the grindy feel of it can be, and even the aesthetics of it, do drop it by a few points. But I was umming and ahhing about whether this was going to be a 6 or a 7, because I thought, does this deserve a seal of endorsement or not? You know, because I was really getting frustrated with some of the times I was playing it. But then I reverted back and thought, all right, let's take it, try a different approach. And as I did, the enjoyment factor came back. I still think that the quest could give you a bit more idea as to which way you're supposed to go. I still think the quests are a bit too long. I think there should have been more quests, but with shorter durations rather than a few quests with really, really long durations. But doing it like an episodic TV show made me enjoy the game more. And on that basis, I think this does deserve overall a 7 out of 10 with a seal of endorsement from me. I think I can actually understand easily if you're one of these people who looks at this game and thinks this is a 10 out of 10. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. I want it. I want to play it right now. By all means, I can fully agree and sympathise with that. You know, if you don't really mind the whole filing cabinet thing, then there's not a lot to dislike here. You know, yes, the aesthetics won't be that great, but you will get that exploration feel, you'll get the cooperation feel, although to be honest, don't see much point playing this with other players. Frankly, I just think of this as a solo game, but if you want to play this with other players, you can. It's just obviously it's going to take longer, but it's entirely up to you. I just played it solo and I will stick with that. But, you know, with that filing cabinet thing aside, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of options, there's plenty of expandability to it. It's just, for me, that I think for a lot of people, as I've been hearing comments on, the grindiness and the long duration of this can just frankly be very grating for many. So that's it for me. I apologise for the length of this video, but I felt that this needed a lot of hours, a lot of plays, and in return, a lot of analysis to get my points across. I don't think there was any way I could have done this as a quick review, even though with this long review I've kept it fairly non-spoilery, I think, so you know, you're not losing anything out there. But yeah, 7 out of 10, give it a shot if you feel it's for you. So that's it for me. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the Patreon, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you can find me on. Check me out, well, eventually check me out in person at a convention once we get all this situation out of the way. But until then, take care, stay safe, and remember, regardless of whether you treat this as your favourite episodic TV show or your giant 3-hour binge session, it's still only a game. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.